Adam Lerner, BrooklynPhotoworks.com, and today we got our first impressions of the Fuji X100F. And what does the F stand for? Well, it is the fourth, therefore the F. So we had the T previously, the third, the S, the second one, and the 100, which was the original. Now, I have had every iteration of this camera, and let me tell you something, I absolutely love the X100 series. I think it's fantastic. I think it's amazing to be able to have such an incredibly robust camera that has the capacity for such incredible image making in such a small package. And it looks awesome. It's very retro. It's unassuming. It's got a quiet shutter. It's got incredible sync speed. There's so many incredible things about this little camera, and it continues to evolve. Now, is the X100F a revolutionary camera? No. This is simply an evolution of the series. So, if you've got an X100T, the third of the series, and you're thinking about upgrading to the F, is that something that you might want to do? Well, let's talk about the camera first and then maybe help you decide. Okay, so let's just go over some quick specs. The X100F has the new X-Trans 3 X Processor Pro, which is the same processor that we've got in the XPro2, which is awesome. It's got the advanced hybrid viewfinder, which is incredible. It basically means that when you are pushing the shutter down about halfway, you get to see what's going on in there, and you kind of know exactly what your exposure is going to be like. It's a really handy tool. So I guess you pre-chimp, if you want to call it that. It's got intuitive analog operation. Well, I mean, look, as you guys can see, there's all kinds of dials and such on here. Really kind of makes it more of an analog experience. You know, you can change the aperture with the aperture ring, you change the shutter with the shutter ring. It's got a new feature now where if you lift up on the shutter ring, you change the ISO. That is something that we saw on the XPro2, and now we are seeing it also on the X100F. The other thing that I really like is that with the exposure compensation dial, it now has détente. That means it's got a very positive click to each little setting, whereas the other iterations of this camera, that dial spun a little bit more freely, and it was very easy to, unfortunately, have it change in your bag, and then all of a sudden you're shooting and you realize, why is everything dark or bright? And then you realize that the exposure compensation dial had been changed. Now it is a lot more set, and it's something that I always recommend that you check if you've been moving it in and out of your bag. The same thing's going to be true about the shutter speed dial. That also has a much more positive click about it, so I think that it's a lot less, I think it's a lot more difficult for these things to inadvertently get changed. You know, the aperture dial kind of feels the same, but still, everything on this camera is built incredibly well. It feels solid. It is built beautifully. It's made in Japan. The quality is there. So let's see what else we can talk about. Okay, here's one of the best features yet on this camera. Not only did they organize all of the functionality on the back of the camera to the right of the camera, which is very intuitive because that's where your thumb is going to be, they also gave a focus lever. This thing is incredible. This little jog dial makes your life incredibly easy. This is something that the XPro2 had, and now it is on the X100F. And what that means is that while you've got the camera up to your face, you can literally, just with your thumb, change exactly where you want the focus point to be and compose your image so incredibly easily, which is awesome. It's got the same 23mm lens, which is 35mm equivalent in full frame, that the X100 had, interestingly. So they haven't changed the optics, but the optics, the glass is absolutely incredible, so insanely sharp. What they have done is that they have put on a 24 megapixel sensor. So the sensor has continually gone up. That is a huge sensor for a little tiny camera. We're talking about 50, sometimes 50 plus megabyte raw files, which are massive, but they are loaded with detail and tons of dynamic range. The ISO sensitivity has also gone up. I think the 51,200 max. I don't really care about that max sensitivity, but what I can say is that when you're shooting in like what I would consider to be like the normal range when you're actually out there using the damn thing, the ISO sensitivity because the sensor has been upgraded, when you are at higher ISOs, the quality, the image quality is that much better. You've got that much less noise, you've got better color information, all of those kinds of other things. What else can I tell you about this thing? Well, there's also a new film simulation. I know with the X100T there was classic chrome, which is like that really cool kind of vintage kind of filmy look. Now there's Acros mode, which is a black and white, which I guess is only really meant for shooting in JPEG. JPEGs are not exactly what I like doing with any of my cameras, but the cool thing is that you can shoot RAW plus JPEG, and you can at times have the camera cook some of those images for you. And if it's cooking to black and white, hey, you know, it doesn't mean that you can't edit it subsequently. So let me drill into the camera a little bit further and talk to you guys a little bit more about some of the things that I like and I don't like. Okay, so you know, remember how I was telling you about this ISO dial, this little thing that you kind of, like I said, you pull it up and then you can kind of switch the ISO. I find that to be a real pain in the butt because the camera is so small that when you're holding it and you're trying to lift this thing up and turn it, and then you also have to worry about not turning the shutter speed because the shutter speed dial is also integrated into that. I find that to be kind of more trouble than it's worth. I mean, I like the fact that it's analog. I think that that's really cool. You know, fully manual control, but I also feel that that's kind of a hassle and it's kind of fiddly, it's small, it's kind of buried in there, it makes it kind of difficult. The other thing that I find that is just kind of a personal issue that I have with this is that because the hot shoe is so tightly flush mounted to the top of the camera, if I have, let's say, a cactus trigger on here, once I lock that trigger on there, I cannot access the shutter ISO dial at all, which is a real pain in the ass. What else? Okay, so look guys, I'm only pointing out negatives here, but positive-wise, this thing is really outweighing all of the negatives. On the positive side, again, the camera feels absolutely fantastic. It's insanely fast. It's incredibly sharp. We've got that high ISO capability, which is incredible. One of the things that's really fantastic is, look at this. They upgraded the battery to the same battery that is used in the XPro2 and the XT2, which is fantastic. So no longer do you have to have a separate set of batteries and chargers for your X100 series. Now you can share the same exact batteries. In addition to that, making things a lot easier, it also means that you're going to get more shots. And that's the thing. I mean, when these things first came out, you didn't get a lot of battery life. I can remember, walking around with like a handful of batteries in my front pocket at all times. Now I'm actually able to get quite a lot of battery life out of these batteries, and that's pretty damn incredible. Another really interesting feature that I haven't played with a lot is the digital teleconverter. What that means is that in the camera, digitally, it offers you the ability to zoom I guess zoom the lens, or internally zoom the lens. And let me just see what that talks about here. In fact, you know what? I don't exactly know what the specs are, but I think it gives you the option to zoom to, you know what? Let's just go and check it out. Let's just go and check it out. I'm going to go into the menu, and let me just see what that says. Okay, we're going to go down here, and oh, you know what, guys? It only works in JPEG mode, which is why I don't love using it. Now, speaking of teleconverters, okay, I bought the latest version of the wide converter and the teleconverter lens. So what that means is that because this is a fixed 23 or 35 millimeter equivalent, with the teleconverter, okay, look at the front element on that thing. How beautiful is that? With the teleconverter, I'm able to get to 50 millimeters. So that's pretty cool. With a wide open aperture of f2 at 50 millimeters, that's actually not a bad portrait lens. Now granted, I like a little bit more for portraits, but you know what, 50 millimeters at f2, that's very nice. Now, some people wonder, like, why would I want to get the wide converter? Because it only really goes to like 28, whereas this is a 35. Well, I can tell you that that extra bit of wide angle really does make a difference, and I have found that I'm using this thing a lot more than I thought. The cool thing about the newest conversion lenses, these two guys, is that they have electronic contacts so that when you put the conversion lenses on the X100F, these particular ones on this particular camera, the camera recognizes the conversion lens is on there. And why is that a big deal? Well, in the past, if you had the other X100 series and you put the older conversion lenses on there, it did not have the contact. So you would have to go into the menu system and you would have to tell the camera that, okay, I've got the wide on here, I've got the tele on here. Not such a big deal, but again, it definitely, slows down your workflow. Now I just put one of these puppies on there, boom. The other interesting thing that I also found is that when you are in JPEG mode and you are using the digital conversion or digital teleconverter, that it'll actually work with your conversion lenses. So that, let's say, for example, I've got the 50 on there and I go to the digital conversion, I think that brings me up to like 100 millimeters, which, hey, that's kind of cool. Again, I have to really play with that, guys. Sorry, I don't have the exact stat. Maybe what I'll do is I'll play with it and I'll put it up on the screen so we know exactly what we're talking about. What else can I tell you? Oh, some other things that don't get discussed very often. This thing has an intervalometer, which is very, very cool. An intervalometer means that you can actually set this up and you can do multiple time-lapse photography, which is very, very cool. The X100T had the intervalometer, but I don't think it's discussed very often. It also has wireless capability. And same like the X100T, but the wireless is very, very cool. Means that you can have your camera set up somewhere and you can manage the entire operation from your phone. So that means you can use your phone, you can set focus points, you can take images, you can save the images to your phone, etc., etc. Very, very cool. So that is a really, really neat thing. Let's see, viewfinder, you can now change the magnification of the electronic rangefinder shown in the small window as EVF at the bottom right corner of the optical viewfinder for enhanced accuracy when checking the focus. Well, basically they've updated the viewfinder, which is really, really cool. Now, look, this camera is packed with a lot of features, and to be honest with you, I really like to use this, I like to set it and forget it. Let's just say that. I'm not sitting there and constantly playing with it, but there are things that are going to appeal to a lot of people. I know that for me, this is the ultimate travel camera and travel kit because now I've got, basically a 3-lens setup on a little tiny camera that fits in virtually any type of situation that I'm bringing with me. It's also got the longer life battery, which is awesome. What would I have liked to have seen? Well, I would have liked to have seen really serious weather sealing because I find that this is the camera that I'm taking with me in all different kinds of situations. I would have liked to have seen a screen that pops out so that, you could basically, do different kinds of things and have an articulating screen. How about a touch screen? Touch screen would have been nice. It seems to be like something that's happening quite a bit. There is no 4K video. Now granted, 4K video, that's going to hog up a ton of space, but why not? Why not? Why have old school video in a camera that's so otherwise updated? But, look at what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a retro style camera, and it's got its very unique look and feel. There is a certain look that you get with the Fuji cameras, particularly with the X100 and the XPro2. I feel that you're not going to get with a Nikon or Canon. Now, that's not a comparative thing as far as qualitative good or bad. It doesn't mean that the Canon is better or the Fuji is better. It just means that the sensor, the whole setup on the Fuji is going to get you a different look, and I love that. I love the fact, to me, that the Fuji images have a little bit more of a filmy vibe. Now, I've been using this camera. I've been using it for personal shoots. I've used it even on professional shoots. I just recently did an entire magazine feature shoot with this camera and these conversion lenses, and it was fantastic. The focus was spot on. The images are incredible. The quality is there. The color information is fantastic. And, it's very interesting too, because when you're working with your clients and you've got this like little tiny retro looking camera, it's a conversation piece too, because people say, oh, what are you shooting? Are you shooting film? Or, hey, is that a Leica? Anyway, you know what? I just love the idea that this is such a small, compact camera that is capable of so incredibly much. So, Let's circle back to that question that we asked in the beginning. If I have the X100T, should I upgrade to the X100F? That is a really difficult question. I think that the enhancements that have been made with the F are incremental, but I think for some people it's going to make a difference. If you're one of those people that has to have the latest and greatest, of course. If you're somebody who, maybe thinks like, maybe rather than upgrading from the T to the F, maybe I'll get another lens from my Nikon or my Canon, maybe get that other lens. One of the things that I decided to do is I had an X100T, I had an XPro2 and a couple of lenses. That was a lot of Fuji gear to be carrying around. So what I ended up doing was I ended up selling the T and the XPro2 and those lenses, and then consolidating to this system because I like this system for what it is. I take this thing on motorcycle trips, I take it on vacations, and like I said, guys, I will use this in a professional setting. So it's always in my bag. So even though I might be on a professional gig and need the speed or the power of the Canon, I still have this rig in there because it is a fantastic alternative. So there you go, guys. First impressions of this camera, absolutely fantastic. It is absolutely by far the best iteration of the X100 series that are out there. Is it perfect? No. I don't honestly know that any cameras are perfect out there, but I definitely think that this is a great evolution of a fantastic series of cameras, and I'm really thrilled to use it. So there you go. If you guys have any questions or comments or want to know anything more about my experiences with the X100F, leave your questions and comments below. That's it for now, and we'll see you soon.